Ready to get started?
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Great, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone today. We're so glad to have you all with us. Hoping that technology cooperates for us to give you a proper welcome to Foundation for the Carolinas. Today is the official welcome to you as new fundholders to Foundation for the Carolinas. And we are just delighted to have this chance to welcome you, even though it's not exactly in the way that we had anticipated. So, to go to the next slide, Dana. My name is Catherine Warfield. I serve as Senior Vice President here at the Foundation for the Carolinas, overseeing our Centers for Giving, of which you all are a part. And so I'm going to kick us off today before turning it over to our President and CEO, Michael Marsicano, for some words of welcome and information about your community foundation. Before we get started, you'll see on your screen some housekeeping notes here. We are going to deliver some information and then save some time at the end for Q&A. In an ideal world, we would have this whole thing start off with a roundtable and an introduction of each other. One of the things we find most helpful about this type of event is not just the learning and the chance for us to hear from you and talk to you, but for you to hear and talk with each other. And we realize we are compromised here in our ability to do that. And so we do want to hear from you. Please feel free to send messages and questions to our organizer through the private chat window. Her name is Rebecca Allison. If you have any issues with your computer connection, you can always disconnect and call in to listen by audio only. And the phone number is there on your screen. If possible, please be sure to mute your microphone if you are not speaking to minimize any background noise. And if you have any connectivity issues, it's best to sort of close out other applications. I also want to lastly, before we get started, say a big thank you to the foundation team who have put this event together, Dana Bradford and Rebecca Allison, who are on with us today, making this all happen. So thank you both. Great. So as I mentioned, I am going to do just a little bit of background and overview of Foundation for the Carolinas to level set a little bit to welcome you all before turning it over to Michael and reserving some time for Q&A. So Dana, if you go to the next slide for me. So as I mentioned, ideally we would tell everybody to unmute and you would all share who you are, how you came to be at the foundation, and one thing you hope to learn today. I'm a little worried about doing that in this environment with technology and the time it might take. So we'd ask if you wouldn't mind, please do that in the chat box. Tell us who you are, one thing you hope to learn today, and if possible, maybe share briefly in what role you are joining us as a new client of the foundation. I think one of the reasons we find this event so helpful is because people come to us through all manners of ways, through being new to an organization, a company or a nonprofit who has a relationship with us, or because their professional advisor sent them to us. And we may not have a chance to fully hear your story or appreciate how you got to Foundation for the Carolinas. So any information, we'd love to hear it. So thank you for sending that along in the chat box. So, you know, as I mentioned, first and foremost, welcome to Foundation for the Carolinas. We are delighted that you all have chosen to establish a relationship with us. As I looked at the list of folks that registered for today's event, it was a really wonderful cross-section of people who have established donor advised funds with Foundation for the Carolinas, individuals and families, people who have established planned gifts, who may not have a relationship with us now, but are using us as a home for part of their charitable legacy. We have new employees, new executive directors of nonprofits who use Foundation for the Carolinas for their investment needs and endowment management. And we have companies and professional advisors represented on this call. So it's a great cross-section, and I think hopefully demonstrates the wide range that your community foundation is working here in Charlotte. We really embrace three main roles, and we want to make sure to hit those briefly here. I think first and foremost, we are a trusted financial steward. We do offer charitable fund management, and as many of you know, we are the 6th largest community foundation with over $2.5 billion in assets. And so as part of that, we understand the immense responsibility and honor that we have to steward charitable assets for the benefit of this community and to do it well. And if we do that well, that leads to the next role, which is to be an impactful grant maker. And to be an impactful grant maker means that we are aware of the issues in our community and we are helping you all, most importantly, have the charitable impact that is important to you and that aligns with your family values, with your mission, with your organization's goals. And then third, we are a proactive civic leader and convener, because in addition to our role as grant maker and helping you do what you want to do, we also want to serve as this, a friend recently said, a connective tissue of community needs and opportunities. And a lot of that is about forging connections and working behind the scenes to try and make movement on key community issues. And of course, now it has never been more important with the issues that our community and our world faces with COVID-19. So hopefully we'll hit on each of those three today. So Dana, next slide. So I mentioned this briefly, but our core competencies we'd like to think is about fund management expertise. That's what got each of you here today, is establishing a current or future relationship with us. But as part of that, hope to deliver donor-centric and innovative services and philanthropic tools to help you be the best philanthropist or the best organization you can be. Overall, we hope to provide you an exceptional fundholder experience, and this is intended to be the kickoff of that journey that we hope to take with you. Okay. So what makes us unique? Foundation for the Carolinas offers things that you might be able to get elsewhere. And we like to think that as your local community foundation and a bona fide nonprofit working in our region, that we have a unique opportunity and a value proposition to serve you and this community well. What makes us unique, in addition to the civic leadership and grant making I just mentioned, is that we do provide personal attention and solutions for our clients. We advocate for legacy giving in a way that will ensure the sustainability of our local nonprofits. We meet a lot with community nonprofits to troubleshoot on issues, and it's never been more true right now as nonprofits face uncertainty and challenges. We serve as a resource to professional advisors, many of whom may have gotten you to us, and we are grateful for that, to help give them the tools. And we also address community challenges through civic leadership and convening. I want to hit briefly, because it's likely each one of you came to the foundation seeking solutions for one or more of these, but may not realize the full breadth of things that we do offer from a planning perspective. So here are the primary ways we intersect with individuals, families, nonprofits, and companies. Donor advised funds are a common tool that individuals and families use to facilitate philanthropy. They may also choose to create scholarship funds or designated funds, which give them the same advisory privileges, but instead focus efforts on scholarships or single organizations. Agency funds are typically the way we interact with nonprofit community organizations who seek to use our services for investments and endowment management. We do serve as trustee on over 100 charitable remainder and charitable lead trusts. And we provide a range of more complex and sophisticated solutions in charitable planning related to gifts of real estate, gifts of closely held business interests, and other philanthropic foundation management like subsidiary foundations and family and board governance and grant making services. So if you want to know anything more about any of those others, don't hesitate to give me a call. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. So, before I turn it over to Michael, I want to make sure that you, and hopefully as new fund holders, you have interacted with us in one or more of these ways, but want to make sure to cover them here. Our website is a wealth of information there, especially now as we try and update it with COVID-related response activities and resources. We have our full staff contact information there. We have a place to reference investment information and forms and fund agreements. And perhaps most importantly, the fund holder login that you see at the top right corner there is the way for you to log in and access your account online if you have not already done so. That information provides real-time opportunity to see contributions and distributions, as well as to pull monthly bank statements. So the next one, Dana. So I mentioned online fund access. Hopefully all of you have already been on and have successfully pulled your statement. If you haven't, also feel free to let me or another contact of the foundation know. But we hope that in addition to the personal attention and service you get from the team, you can access the information you need from the convenience of your computer and at a time that works for you. Here's a snapshot of those monthly fund statements that are made available to you. And then lastly, we do offer programs and events. This is an example of one of those that's geared for our new fund holders, but we try and provide a range of topics that might be of interest to you, everything from investments to family philanthropy and planning opportunities and nonprofit plan giving seminars, you know, sort of the whole range. And they're typically available on our website, as well as you might get them in an e-blast. So hope you take advantage of those. We are trying to find ways to continue to bring you these in a virtual environment like today. And then here is a snapshot of our team. I think that in closing, what I would say is we had a very exciting morning planned for you to tour you around our facility and to show you the real example of our building as a gift of philanthropy, a meaningful example of philanthropy at work in your community. There is our full team in the gallery of our headquarters in Uptown Charlotte, which is, of course, right now closed given COVID. But, you know, hope you know that even though we are not physically here to see you and greet you, we're absolutely here and working for you and for this community, and happy to do anything we can for you, and look forward to hosting you in person sometime soon. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael. And as I mentioned, please feel free to include questions and chats along the way so that we can collect those and revisit them at the end. Welcome to the Foundation for the Carolinas. Thank you for choosing us, and we're really delighted to have you with us today.
Well, thank you, Catherine. Good morning. I am so pleased that you could join us today for this special gathering, which is made so because of your participation. Every year we do bring our fund holders together to welcome them to the foundation. And this year is obviously a different format. What is usually a very social occasion is now a very socially distant occasion. But nevertheless, we're honored you're joining us today, and we're hopeful you and your families are safe, secure, and healthy. Your foundation team has been working from home for about 6 weeks now. This is the first time I've worn a suit and tie since that time. My mother always taught me, when you want to show folks respect, wear your Sunday best. So here I am. For those of you that I've not had the pleasure of meeting personally, I serve as president and CEO of Foundation for the Carolinas. And in that capacity, I want to start with an official welcome to you, to our family of fund holders. You join nearly 3,000 other individuals, families, corporations, and nonprofits spread across the 13-county region we serve. And I cannot state strongly enough how appreciative I am that you made the decision to open a fund here at your community foundation. Our mission says that Foundation for the Carolinas inspires philanthropy and empowers individuals to create a better community. And this mission statement stands on 2 pillars of purpose. First, as Catherine has described, serving you, our fund holders, and helping to facilitate your philanthropic goals. It's our great pleasure to do that. And the second pillar is initiating civic leadership activities of many size, shapes, and colors. Catherine gave you some thoughts about how we serve you specifically, but I'd like to focus on the foundation's history, some of our numbers, and our civic leadership work. We were founded in 1958 thanks to a $3,000 gift from the United Way. And in the 62 years since, we've grown our assets collectively with all of you to more than $2.4 billion. I'd say that's a pretty good return on the investment of a $3,000 grant from the United Way. In the most recent rankings, we were ranked the 6th largest of 800 community foundations across the nation by asset size. And we cover a region that stretches 13 counties in North and South Carolina. To give you some idea of our growth, when I started at the foundation in 1999, we were just the 35th largest community foundation. Our national prominence has increased so dramatically in recent years, thanks to the generosity of folks like you who work with the foundation to make things happen and to build the philanthropic capital for our community. And I'm particularly honored to work with a talented staff, some you've met today, who work tirelessly to serve our fund holders, the community, and all of our partners and stakeholders. You will find them very helpful in anything that you might need. Now, not included in that 2.4 billion in assets, our pipeline of estate giving. In 2019, last year, we increased that pipeline by 75 million. And the total value of estate expectancies coming to the foundation on top of the 2.4 billion we hold in stewardship is another 850 million. Some donors choose to leave gifts to support specific causes and nonprofits. We have over 500 nonprofit specific to organizations. And of the 850 million in estate gift expectancies, about 86% of those, or 730 million, will be restricted to benefit specific nonprofits chosen by the donor who establishes the estate. A smaller portion, about 14%, or about 120 million, has been entrusted, will be entrusted to the foundation, and these funds will be used at the discretion of future grant-making boards to address future community needs, wherever they may be. We actually encourage unrestricted endowment and estate gifts precisely because no one knows what the future holds. And as an example, the fact that we're all online and not together talks about what the future holds. You need look no further than the COVID-19 pandemic we are currently facing than to think about the unexpected. No one could have predicted how much the world has changed in just the last 6 weeks. And unrestricted gifts allow us to respond when the unpredictable happens, and it always will. Whichever path donors choose, ultimately all bequests enable a pipeline of assets for the community, and they ensure the sustainability for the nonprofits and the causes our fund holders hold dear. We know the one thing you all share is love and support and appreciation for philanthropy. And last year alone, we saw contributions to foundation-held funds by folks like you collectively top $298 million. And we distributed back out into the community $340 million in grants directly to nonprofits. And that's thanks to the generosity of fund holders such as yourselves. I wish I could tell you that none of the grants our fund holders make are controversial, but that's not the world we live in. It should come as no surprise that a community foundation would reflect the community it serves and its many political, religious, economic, and educational viewpoints. We are a big tent. We are a community foundation. One fund holder does not necessarily express another fund holder's values, and the foundation expresses its own values through our discretionary grant making and our civic leadership work. That civic leadership work gives the foundation a voice in the region and helps shape the direction of our communities. Our flagship program is called the Robinson Center for Civic Leadership. And through that center, we leverage our limited discretionary resources in partnership with others. And our civic leadership work is helping to shape our community for the future, one that is accessible to all, forward-thinking, and a leader in civic engagement and civic problem solving. Most of our civic initiatives are localized to one community or another, but occasionally we're able to bring everybody together across the region and tackle a major civic initiative that brings us all together. I'll give you an example of that. The Carolina Thread Trail is an initiative that emerged from a 2005 foundation-led study to identify the needs environmentally in our region. After that study, it led to 15 years later, a regional network of connected greenways, trails, and blueways now stretching 300 miles across 15 counties, 2 states, and 3 million people. And the Carolina Thread Trail Master Plan, which will take years to complete, has been adopted by more than 85 different governmental jurisdictions across those 15 counties. And the citizens of each of those counties have designed 1,600 miles of interconnected greenways and trails. 300 exist today, but they grow by miles every year. Here in Charlotte, you may not know, but the foundation spearheaded the cultural campus on South Tryon Street of the 3 museums, the theater, now known as the Levine Center for the Arts. Few people know that that all came about in the boardroom of the foundation. And not content to launch one theater, the foundation is also leading the restoration of a classic movie palace contiguous to our current building, the Carolina Theater, and we are so excited about that. It is under construction now. The theater was built in the grand age of the 1920s in 1927, but was abandoned since 1978. We started construction on the classic movie palace in 2018, and we're going to transform it into a modern dynamic theater and meeting space, but preserving its historic nature and making it a cornerstone of the civic campus that we've now called Belk Place. Belk Place will include both the Center for Philanthropy and the Carolina Theater, and it's in honor of an extraordinarily generous lead gift to the theater restoration from Cat Belk, the late Tom Belk, and the late Claudia and John Belk. On a completely different subject matter, we were very troubled by our high school with the highest concentration of poverty and the lowest graduation rate. So we created what's been known as Project Lift. We invested with our discretionary dollars, $2.5 million over 5 years, raised $55 million in private funds, and we were able to move the graduation rate from 51% to 88% in that low-income high school. Now, people think a lot about 55 million, but when you look at the 9 feeder schools coming into that high school and the high school itself, it's only $1,500 per student per year, more than most of us, less than most of us spend for a half a week of a summer camp for our children. So for a small amount of money per child, we got a big bang for our buck. But most importantly, or rather said, our most important comprehensive civic achievement, I would say, was in 2017, when we helped release the groundbreaking Leading on Opportunity report. That report detailed the determinants for upward mobility and made over 90 recommendations for addressing economic opportunity. It has been the blueprint of philanthropic focus for many in our region since it was launched, and it has spearheaded numerous initiatives. A key recommendation of that report was increase accessibility to affordable housing. So again, the foundation agreed to raise $50 million for affordable housing through our Charlotte Housing Opportunity Investment Fund. We created that to match the $50 million bond referendum taxpayers voted in November of 2018. We decided to put $5 million of our own discretionary dollars into that fund, but thanks to donations, particularly from corporations, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Truist, Atrium, Health, Duke Energy, Novant, and many others, we exceeded the goal and raised $53 million for the Affordable Housing Investment Fund, and we're very proud of that. In addition, we helped raise $26 million for an initiative we call A Way Home. It's a public-private partnership that places families and veterans in market rate housing with rental subsidies. And those rental subsidies are coupled with wraparound services from existing organizations such as the Salvation Army and the Charlotte Family Housing to create a pathway for self-sufficiency. And after the first 2 years of people moving off of the program, 75% of them have been able to retain their apartments and pay for the rent themselves. That's an extraordinary rate of success in this kind of difficult work. So in total, if you combine all the affordable housing efforts that we've spearheaded through the city, the county, the foundation, partner contributors, our national partner LISC, in about 16 months, we raised $300 million for affordable housing, both public and private dollars. And I think that shows best the power we can have as a foundation if we have a voice in the room. And fund holders just like you are what give us that voice. That voice is also why the communities reach out to us in times of need. And as we can all attest after the last 6 weeks, there is no bigger time of need than the one we are currently facing, as we all struggle to adapt to life in this pandemic. On March 16th, before the economic effect of this crisis was fully known, we launched the COVID-19 Response Fund. And we did that in partnership with the United Way of Central Carolinas, though the grants are not limited to United Way agencies. And thanks to a $1 million lead gift from Lending Tree and a matching $1 million gift from the city, we were off and running. And we've now raised more than $17 million in just a month. It's been a truly great community-wide effort with contributions from corporations, the government, foundations, and individuals. And donations have ranged from a $2 commitment from an anonymous online donor to $1.3 million as the largest gift from the county. To date, those funds have allocated in the form of grants nearly $6.5 million to local nonprofits on the front lines on this pandemic. It is stunning for us to read through these grant applications, the numbers of people lining up at food banks, at the shelters, who need income recovery, educational support, human services, mental health services, and more importantly, just some hope. And since we are a community foundation that serves 13 counties, we've also seen our boards in the other counties respond as well, creating other regional affiliate funds, helping with the COVID response in counties like Iredell, Cabarrus, and York counties. And our boards in Stanley and Lincoln County have devoted their unrestricted grant making this year to COVID-specific causes. So it takes a village. This corona crisis has made a lot of previously unthinkable notions a reality, and we have all scrambled to adjust to this new normal. Part of that new normal, I think, is dealing with the long-term effects of this pandemic. The foundation has one national program, and it's a wholly owned subsidiary that is working hard on the pandemic issue. E4E Relief was started after 9/11 in 2001, and we did it as a fund holder service to our corporate fund holders who had employees devastated in the 9/11 situation. But over the years, our reputation in giving direct grants to individuals, which are very challenging to do within the code, so you have to be very careful. But our ability to do this and this expertise has drawn corporations from all over the country to open funds with us in this subsidiary we wholly own called E4E Relief. Its mission is to offer companies employee assistance program to support their employees during unexpected times of hardship. Typically, a natural disaster like a hurricane or an unexpected illness. And since its launch, E4E has a client list of national corporations that now serve 4 million employees across the globe. With the coronavirus pandemic alone, we anticipate awarding from those fundholders more than 125 million in charitable grants directly to individuals in crisis on behalf of those corporate clients. It's because of that reputation that New York Life called us, along with Cigna. And I will tell you, when we got the phone call, I was standing up and my knees actually buckled out from under me, because they wanted us to serve the healthcare worker families who pass away because of COVID-19. They've given us $15 million to open a fund called the Brave of Heart Fund. It has a goal of raising $100 million for the families of these new American healthcare heroes. It's a bittersweet reality. We are thankful to help those who are in need, but also sad that there are so many who currently need help. That grants program will have 2 phases for these families of fallen healthcare workers. The first phase will give grants of $15,000 to funeral services and burials. The second phase will help those families up to $60,000 per family to be able to access money for the education of their children or some lost income recovery because of a fallen parent. So that's a sobering part of the crisis that we're seeing. But I want to end on a positive note. It's important to remember how much good there is out there. And actually, the money for this Brave of Heart Fund is just an example of the humanitarian efforts we're seeing, not just across the country, but also here in our local region. We are lucky to work for a foundation that serves generous donors like yourselves who are helping in ways that you see fit to do right now. Because these are all selfless acts. We get to see so much good in the world. And when people ask me what I like most about my profession, I say, imagine a profession where you get to see the best of people every day. The best in fundholders doing great things, and the best in nonprofits accomplishing great things. So I'll end by telling you, you serve a proud American tradition that has honored philanthropy since 1917, when the charitable tax deduction was authorized. This was earth-shattering across the world, the only government that did such a thing. The American government in 1917 decided to enable the money that it takes from us in the form of taxation and enables us to use it to advance the welfare of our people in the way we see it. When we individuals volunteer our hard-earned dollars to advance society by giving from our own pockets to IRS-sanctioned nonprofits, our government taxes us less. We get a tax deduction. Said another way, when we Americans are kind to strangers, we pay less to Uncle Sam. Think of it this way. As a matter of public policy, the law of this land rewards us for taking a personal role in helping others. Uncle Sam gets less when we give more. And I say to that, wow, that's something to be joyful about. But most importantly, we as a community all get more when we give more. Because your generosity and dedication to the causes you hold dear provide care for those who need it and comfort to those without it. You give us hope, strength, and you show us that there's always going to be a better tomorrow. So I want to thank you for your generosity and your vision, for choosing us to help fulfill your philanthropic goals. You are the reason for our community's success, and I welcome you to Foundation for the Carolinas. And I'm open to any questions you might have of me.
You take PPP money.
Great. Thanks, Michael. I think we may have some questions coming in. I think I wanted to make one statement and then add one question. I think, worth noting too, in addition to the incredible response that Michael talked about, that the foundation has led in partnership with the United Way on COVID and the region-specific funds, I think we've been really humbled by the response of our clients and our fund holders in responding. And we did some analysis over the last 5 to 6 weeks. We've had corporate donor advised funds, so corporate clients and individual and family clients, award over $8 million in just a short amount of weeks to a range of issues. So everything from national and international organizations like the World Central Kitchen and Samaritan's Purse, to local relief fund efforts like ours and the Jewish Federation's Response Fund. So it just goes to show that I think philanthropy steps up in a big way, particularly in times of crisis, and we are honored to be a part of that. A quick plug that we've got a fundholder event for individual and family fundholders and professional advisors next Tuesday that we're working on, that's going to go a little bit more in depth about trends we're seeing, things we're monitoring in the community in terms of needs, and how we can help provide some tangible advice to our fundholders about how to respond in a time when the needs seem, so numerous. So we hope that you all will join us then. Michael, one question I was going to ask you to talk about is that, community foundations, you mentioned the network of 850 that we are a part of. Community foundations are all different depending on the different community and how they started. And we talked about how we started with a grant from the United Way. We're all very different. Foundation for the Carolinas is particularly innovative, I think, and unique across the country. And one particular way it is with its partnerships. And so a supporting organization of Foundation for the Carolinas is the Foundation for the Charlotte Jewish Community. You sit on that board, Michael, and we have several fundholders today who have established relationships with our FCJC team, who are also on the call today. And so it's just, I think, one indication of the interesting and unique roles that we play. And didn't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of that relationship to us and to the community.
Sure, Catherine. Thank you. It is such an honor for me to have the privilege of serving on that board. It is one of the best run boards. It has a very focused mission. It has 2 folks on their professional team who are just experts in what they're accomplishing for the Jewish community. And they're well known for their strategic planning for the Jewish community, their service to the nonprofit Jewish organizations, and also to the Jewish donors who have funds within this supporting organization called the Charlotte Jewish Community Foundation. They've also become a leader in their field of Jewish community foundations, having received some very prestigious grants from around the country for their particular work in plan giving. Phil Washauer, I know, is on the line because I can see him, actually. He's one of the people I can see. And he's become such a leader in the Jewish community. So it is a privilege to work side by side, both Phil and for me to be on that board. But it is an example of many of the different types of constellations of fund holders through different lenses and different purposes that come together through the foundation to do things in the areas that they care most about.
Great, thank you. And I think there's just so many connection points, I think, and we take those journeys with our donors and with our community based on the needs and where we know we need and want to go. You talked about the region earlier, and I know we have some folks that live outside of Charlotte who have joined us as well. And the growth of community foundations geographically has also been extremely important, in addition to its growth from a size and asset perspective. And I think that it has been a really interesting journey. I know, Michael, that has changed and evolved a lot in your 20 plus years here, to think about the 12 affiliate county foundations. We have a board in every single one of those counties. So again, something you may not know on the phone, we have a board in each of those counties, and that board is tasked with giving away dollars that have been left to the foundation's discretion for the benefit of that community. And I think in the wisdom of Michael and our previous leadership, board leadership, they recognize that we can't be in each one of those communities and know the needs that are specific to those populations. And so just like FCJC has its board to identify and set strategy, these county affiliates each have their own boards to know the local leaders and to know the needs that are unique to that particular community, which in Cabarrus County look very different than York County, that look very different than Cherokee County. And so, you know, how we rely on a network to get our work done is also really important. That wasn't really a question, it was more of a statement. Although happy, Michael, if you have any thoughts about that one. As far as other questions go, I think, you know, Michael, you have been at the foundation since, what, 1999? Is that, and so I think one question that we are fielding a lot on our side is what parallels are we seeing from the '08 recession? You know, how are we seeing donors respond? You know, are there any sort of, you know, learnings that we took from that experience that we are applying today in terms of our leadership and our response?
Catherine, that's a good question. So in 2008, well, let me say, prior to 2008, I used to tell folks across the country that Charlotte region was recession resistant. We weren't recession proof, but recessions would come and go and we didn't feel them very much. But in 2008, because we are an epicenter of banking, we had a really rough time as a region with that 2008 recession. Unemployment in Charlotte and the region went up over 10%. In some of the contiguous counties we serve, in the teens. And we were in a crisis mode then. People were in front of crisis assistance ministry, in lines around the building. The food banks couldn't get enough food to serve the folks lining up there, and people who had never thought about being in those lines found themselves unemployed and actually in those lines. And I thought that was a pretty rough time. We initiated a fund then. It only raised, then we thought it was a lot, it only raised 6.5 million. Compared to today is why I say only, in that we're at 17 million for this crisis. But what we learned from that economic downturn was how to allocate grants with discretionary dollars that had been contributed on a every 2 to 4 week basis, working with the nonprofit delivery service providers to know exactly where they were getting increased lines or increased need, and we could move the money every 2 to 4 weeks depending on what was happening to people in the community. It was highly effective in its results, and we essentially use that model today for the COVID-19 response fund. The challenge with the COVID-19 response fund is the unemployment rates and the devastation people are facing are much higher than they were in 2008. And to just give you one statistic, 1 in 4 of every person who rents an apartment could not pay their rent in April. 1 in 4. So it's a good thing we have more than 6.5 million from 2008 and 17 million in 2020, because the needs are simply that much greater. And of course, some of those needs are different because of the pandemic. But I'm very proud of the grants committee. We are very volunteer centric in everything we do. We have a grants committee that is aided with a professional team in reviewing grants. We are about to allocate the first of next week the next round of grants. The 3-week period since the last round ended Friday, and we had 250 requests from 250 different nonprofit organizations. So the team is reading all those applications, trying to figure out how they match up to the needs, trying to figure out who's providing the best services, the best bang for the buck, and we'll be allocating the next round next week.
Great. Michael, one more question I think that could be helpful for this group to sort of bridge the gap between where we've been and where we're going. You've talked about the fact that Foundation for the Carolinas started with a small grant from the United Way over 60 years ago. You've talked about the pipeline of commitments, legacy gifts that are currently scheduled, or planned to come to the foundation for the benefit of a variety of community organizations, both local and nationally. I think it's interesting that most community foundations, of course, were actually started because one or more wealthy families passed away and left significant assets for the benefit of that community. And they needed dollars. I mean, they wanted the dollars to stay local and needed a trusted organization to oversee those. That's sort of the typical spirit of our field. My question is really about the future of the community from a planned giving perspective, and what we're doing to encourage inclusion of discretionary bequests, really to meet the evolving and unknown needs of our local partners and nonprofits.
Sure. When Catherine mentions the other community foundations across the country, the first community foundation was founded in 1914 in Cleveland, and it was exactly for the purposes that Catherine suggested. And so when you look at the Cleveland Foundation today, which actually is about the same size that we are, a huge majority of their assets are actually unrestricted assets. In 1914, Cleveland was the 5th largest city in America. It was extremely wealthy. And over time, many of those high net worth individuals bequeathed large sums of money to the Cleveland Community Foundation. And so the Cleveland Community Foundation is now this huge grant-making enterprise in Cleveland. And it's almost to the point in Cleveland where nothing moves forward without the Cleveland Community Foundation being right there in a major way with finance in funding things. We're a much younger community foundation. 1958 may not sound that young, but in the community foundation field, it is. And most of our assets are very, very much donor-driven and donor fund holders held. And we serve those donors, we hope, very well. But we also know that something that none of us can avoid, taxes and death, right? Let's be honest about it. That there are a lot of folks in Charlotte who have done very well financially, who are of an age, who are beginning to think about their estate plans, not only for their family, but for the charitable piece of that estate plan. And because many of those folks have come of age to be looking at those things, as one of our major initiatives in the next several years is, as we always do, is to go where our donors are. And as many of our donors are planning their estates, we're having conversations in much more frequency with donors about the charitable portion of their estate. And what we're finding is that donors want to make sure some of the agencies that they love have an endowment, and they want to designate an endowment in the name of that group, but they also know, and particularly now when we will lose many of our nonprofits coming out of COVID-19, I will tell you, many of them will not survive, and I'm particularly worried about the arts organizations. Well, donors will often make a estate gift to the foundation, and let's say the estate gift goes to the symphony, but they want it at the foundation because the symphony might go out of business someday, and they want to have a succession plan that the money is not spent in a bankrupt organization, not saying the symphony is going bankrupt, but if it ever did, they want the money to be able to go to the next iteration of classical music that develops in our community. And so that's why some folks want it restricted to the symphony, but given to the foundation for the Carolinas. Other individuals want to not just be bound by a specific organization, but be bound by a subject matter, like the environment, or animal welfare, or the arts. And so we have just launched community impact funds, where we are talking to high net worth individuals of age to look at these community impact funds in addition to any specific organization that they might want to leave a portion of their estate to. Here's a statistic that we know to be true nationwide. 70% of individuals who make provisions in their estate for charity did it because the charity asked them to, not because they woke up in the middle of the night and decided that they would give X amount of their estate to nonprofit organizations. And the challenge in our country, and particularly in our community, is that colleges and universities, I see Bruce McMillan on, colleges and universities have incredible professional staffs to work with high net worth individuals to garner estate gifts for what is, besides our houses of worship, perhaps our closest organization in our lives, our alma mater. But most nonprofits, from museums to food banks to YMCA and other institutions, do not have the plan giving expertise to go out and ask donors to put them in their estate. So we often partner with those organizations to bring our professional staff who's expert in plan giving in collaboration with those organizations to help pitch part of an estate gift coming to charity. And estate gifts are very complicated. So it's great to have the staff that we have. We have 5 full-time attorneys on staff. Sometimes they drive me crazy. Some of them are on the phone. I mean, no disrespect to lawyers. What I'm actually saying is you are in good hands with the team that we have if you do want to talk to us about an estate gift.
Great, thank you, Michael. I don't see any other questions, and I know we're nearing time. I think the to extend that comment, you know, because of, and I'm not one of the lawyers, but I'm just a wannabe, and so I think that I think you're right. I think this idea of, you know, I think for us, success looks like advocating for philanthropy in whatever form it takes. If we do our jobs right, it is absolutely that rising tide lifts all boats saying come to life, right? And so for us to put our muscle from a plan giving perspective, and Phil and Nancy do such a great job of this on behalf of the Jewish organizations in this community, and for us on behalf of the broader nonprofit community, if we give people the tools and put the conversation in front of you and your professional advisors, then we're, you know, and organizations benefit, then we have achieved success in whatever form that takes. And so it's a really wonderful part of what we get to do, to be in those legacy conversations with this amazing people like many of you on the phone. So, you know, I think the other thing I would say in closing is just to make sure, you know, the team here, we and Phil is I think you're the one that says this, where we often are philanthropic problem solvers, and so, you know, and there are problems, you know, and they are complicated, and so we want you to know that your team is here to as my 3-year-old. Here's my 3-year-old. Hold on 1 second. Here are my children. Here we all are. This is real life. So anyway, we are all here. Here you go. Would you like to say hello? Hello. So here we go. Sorry, this is not a plant. But anyway, we are here to serve you, and we just want y'all to know, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us, big or small, we're here. So thank you.
Catherine, since we're all about the future, I don't know if you staged that lovely child to come in at the right time, but it was
really didn't.
Terrific.
I'll get her to later. Anyway, I just thank you all for being here. Thank you for the team that made this happen. Michael, thank you for your leadership and for all the ways that y'all support our community. We're grateful.
Everybody stay safe and healthy. Take care.